The ultimate deck podcast. Need a show about outdoor living? This is where it's at with your hosts, Shane Chapman and Way Laurent. Thank you for tuning in. Now let the show begin. Yeah. The ultimate deck podcast. Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody. The Ultimate Deck Podcast. Wade and Shane here in the same room, same time. As always, you're Wade. I'm Shane.
Can we put this on the issues list?
What?
I want new intro music. We've been gone for so long.
You can't.
And we're back. Now I want new music.
Commit to recording weekly podcasts again, and I will get the music
because the music's
redone.
So bad.
I'll get the music
If the music
redone.
changes, I'll come back.
I can do the music.
Have you seen The Field of Dreams? Build it, and they will come.
Fair enough.
Change the song.
Fine. I'll change the song. As long as
Country.
we then use the song weekly.
Can we use a country?
We could do country if you want.
Yeah,
Want a country theme?
How about, like, rich men go to Richmond?
We've had the not rock, but the radio DJ. What is We had that kind of intro for a bit.
It was actually exactly like that, Warfa. Shane recorded it. It was awful.
I didn't record it. And then we have the current hip hop one we've had for some time.
Yeah.
It is time for a change. It's just like
let's do it.
We gotta use it. Okay.
We will. We'll get this going again. Let's do it.
You might hear Warfa's name from time to time now because Warfa is now marketing assistant, official title. Me and Warfa work on things together now. And so he's in the room here, and he's going to feed us some things here off the cuff GPT. And he looked up
producer
what the most important things that homeowners should consider when they're going to build a new deck.
Yeah, they certainly shouldn't overlook these things. You know, if you're a homeowner,
we did not look at the list. Like I took a quick glance as it was being typed up or like on the screen. I was like, yep, that looks good. Sounds good. And Worf is going to read these off one at a time. And we're going to just, using our vast experience in gray hair, discuss each one.
We got some grays.
Worf, what's number one on the list? I didn't think this through. I'm wearing headphones. I could barely hear them.
So
but
I
got
heard them.
Local
building codes and permits.
Okay. This is what you wanted to talk about anyway. It ended up being number one. How perfect.
Yeah, because I think it is a question that a lot of homeowners ask. They walk in the store and, they have an idea of what they want. They're like, I want to use the space for this, this, and this. Do I need a permit?
Yeah.
Like, they almost always ask that.
Yes.
It's a gray area, man.
It's a very deep, dark gray.
Yeah.
So
here's the answer. Yes, you need a permit. But if you don't get a permit, then sometimes or most times nobody even finds out.
Yeah.
Right?
This episode is advice we shouldn't give.
If the deck falls off the house, the liability is going to fall on you because you don't have a permit. If you do have a permit, it also falls on you because there's no accountability to the inspectors or the engineers. Like none of those guys are at fault for anything that happens.
Let's not open this wound.
So you probably should get a permit because what it does ensure is that your load for the like the deck load and the pounds per square foot, that's all done properly. It makes sure that you're not overspanned and make sure your deck isn't going to fail. It gives you the best opportunity to do that. Almost always, everybody walks in and was like, well, I already have a 16 by 12. I'm just going to replace this deck. Do I need a permit for that? So technically you do. That's a farce. That's a total lie. Imagine if you had a deck that was 16 feet wide by 12 feet out and it was all framed out of 2 by 10 and it had rotted and deteriorated. You ripped it all off and you're like, well, I'm just building it the same size, but you built it all at a 2 by 4 joist. The exact same size, exact same beam spans, everything. It would be a trampoline and then break and fall. And you'd be like, well, I don't understand why I just built it. You didn't build it the same.
Yeah, if you reframe that question around a full house, it's like you tear a house down or a house burns down.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't need to get a permit for the new house.
I'm just going to build the same one.
Building on the same lot.
Yeah.
So the only universal answer here is that you must check with your local building department because everywhere is a little bit different as to when you do and when you don't need a permit.
Certainly.
We can speak from frame of reference within Regina, Saskatoon, and maybe some of the rurals, but even between Regina and Saskatoon where we are, which is only
100 miles.
250 kilometers or 170 miles away, the rules are different between those two communities in the same province.
Yep.
So, for example, in Regina, you don't need a permit if it's under 32 square feet.
Saskatoon's 40, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Saskatoon's is a little bit bigger. Regina, you don't need a permit if it's under 12 inches off the ground. Saskatoon, it's 8 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
Like, so even these little tiny differences are different between communities that are nearly identical.
Yes.
The rules are a little bit different. And then to your point around like the existing deck, okay, the rules around that are a little bit different too. Maybe in some regions, replacement is okay. I don't know. It's not here. If you're replacing just the deck boards and not touching the structure and it already had a permit, then you're okay.
Correct.
Probably didn't have a permit.
Most likely.
So you're still not okay. So that's why I just say like, yes, because the amount of instances where you don't need it are like few and far between.
So few.
There are a few instances where you don't need a permit.
Yeah.
But most cases you do. So if you are looking for a yes or no answer, default to yes, because that's the most likely scenario.
Yeah. And
But
so
check with your building.
it also really helps you unload your property when you're selling your house later on. Because if a home inspector does due diligence, they would look to see if you did pull a permit for that. And if you didn't, you're in the process of selling your house. And now all of a sudden you have to go and get a permit. And it's like, nobody wants to deal with that stuff at the end. When you're like trying to get rid of your house, you don't want to now be doing this stuff.
Well, and so we can look at this from two perspectives. From a legal or civic standpoint, are you supposed to get a permit? Yeah, the city has their reasons for you wanting to get a permit. But for your own personal insurance, your own like making sure your project goes okay, it's a good idea to follow the rules of the build, and the permit is how you know you're following the rules. Because let's say you don't build it. Does the permit guarantee that the deck is safe? No, it does not.
Does not.
Because it only tells you how you're supposed to build it.
Yeah.
If you don't follow all the supposed to's, then it may still be unsafe, even though you got a permit. And maybe there's certain aspects of the permit doesn't cover. But what it does cover is, are you even allowed, and I know this is
Right.
regulation, but are you even allowed to build a deck that size?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
where you want to build it? Because some cities, again, Regina included, now have these percentages of your lot that can be covered by structure and percentages that cannot be covered by structure.
Yep.
So maybe you've got a house that's already pretty big on a lot your size, and you have a garage in the back, and you're going to build a deck. But according to the city's rules, that deck can only be a max of 200 square feet, or else it breaks that whole ratio rule.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but I'm going to build it like 16 by 24.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're 300 some square feet. And if now some shitty neighbor calls in and says, did they get a permit? Didn't get a permit. Sometimes it's as easy as like, oh, okay, I'll apply for the permit now.
Yeah.
Then you apply for the permit in this situation though, and it fails.
Then you got to change your deck.
And you got to change your deck.
No good.
That costs a lot more than $100.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure
So,
does.
Just to be able to like sleep at night and know that you've done things okay and that it's not going to end up costing you financially later
Yeah.
is like,
I'm a
pretty
big
good
beg for
reassurance.
forgiveness kind of guy, and like it'll bite you. You know, it'll
Yeah.
bite you sometimes.
yeah.
So-
But some of those building departments can be awfully inflexible. They don't care about your forgiveness. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you are 3 inches too long, so therefore you're going to change your deck now.
Well, sometimes you can like pull the whole neighborhood, and you can get an amendment to it, but you have to have 51 people sign off on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah,
But
it's
just
crap.
the bottom line is the inconvenience of getting a permit is nothing compared to like having done something you weren't allowed to do and then having to read.
yeah, and the stress of dealing with all that. So,
Ugh.
all right,
Okay.
Warfa.
Number 2.
Design and plan / budget.
Also a good one. I mean, we were just talking about designing and planning. Make sure you're doing what you're allowed to do, first of all.
Right.
Know what canvas you're able to work within. I'm allowed to build the deck up to this size, then figure out the details of like what shape it's going to be and if it's going to be tiered and if it's
Certainly.
whatever. And budgeting, of course.
It's like, I don't know, man. I think budgets it's got to be the biggest one. It's
Should
the
almost be number 1, yeah.
absolutely no one loves to share that, but whatever. It's huge. Huge.
And the problem why some people don't want to share it is because they don't know what it's supposed to cost and they are maybe embarrassed to even throw a number out there. It's like they're
Right.
standing in front of you,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, what do you want to spend? And it's like, they're like, well, what I want to spend is about $2,000, but I
Yeah.
don't know what this is supposed to cost.
Yeah, and you're
And
like,
I don't wanna
that's
look
cute. That's what
dumb.
the railing costs.
Yeah. They're like, oh, like $2,000. And you're kind of like, you're not going to like, it's uncomfortable to speak, to
Yeah.
put a number on something you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
But you do have to understand and get there somehow because a deck is not just a deck. You
Not
can't just
anymore.
say a deck is $20 a square foot. Nowadays, you'd be hard pressed to build one for $20
was
square
like-
foot, regardless of what you do.
Yeah. Are you building it or are you just supplying it at that price?
Yeah.
Right. So
But it could be 20 if you just do a treated deck. You're building it yourself. Yeah, it probably could be $20 a square foot. But
Yeah.
it could also be 150 if you pick different things
pretty easy.
and you hire somebody to build it. Like, so it's impossible to like.
The design thing I think is really important. Is the one that I always mention to homeowners when I talk to them in the stores or on site is just like, take the space that you don't have in your house, the space that you're trying to create in your house, and put that outside, because it's cheaper to build a deck than to do a renovation on your house.
Sure.
So if you want dining, like your dining room's too small and you wish you could have a little more room there, make sure your deck is able to accommodate that, and then eat dinner outside occasionally.
Yep.
And if your couch is crowded or your living room's crowded and small because it's an open concept house, and
Put your couch outside.
put that couch outside. Right? Put the plastic on it. You know, the plastic couch
Yeah.
that your mom covered and you weren't allowed to use? That's because it goes on the deck.
So get the budget figured out. I wanted to speak to one point. There's like, this is a common complaint, especially from contractors, that a lot of vendors out there will put budget calculators or budget tools on their websites,
Yeah.
like Trex and like TimberTech, the manufacturers. And there's always complaints that they're wildly inaccurate to what the reality of the situation is. So, and unfortunately, it misleads homeowners into like setting this false expectation. They're like, oh, well, the calculator I used online said it was supposed to cost me $8,000.
Sounds good. Get them to build it.
Yeah, and then the contractor's like, it's 23. Like my materials are 12
Yeah.
or whatever, right? Whatever the numbers are. But it's like, don't forget that the goal of the manufacturer is to make sure you choose their deck board.
Yep.
They may have just like selectively tweaked the data a little bit to make sure that theirs looks a little bit more attractive than the next guy's.
Yep.
Because if my brand A calculator says this deck's going to cost you 8 and brand B calculator says it's going to cost 11, you might just go with brand B thinking like, oh, well, it's going to be cheaper to do it with brand B. As far as they're concerned, sweet. Now
I think, right?
brand A and B, whatever I said.
A was 8,000, B was 11,000.
Sure.
Right? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He wasn't listening. He fell asleep over there.
Whichever alphabet I used. So then the homeowner stops even looking at brand B and just starts their search, their path, like their research path down brand A.
Yep.
So brand A is like, sweet, calculator worked just like I planned.
Gotcha.
Then they go in to go get a deck quote. Oh, turns out it is $12,000 or $11,000. But it's like, but you've already committed yourself mentally. You've picked up the color. You're getting it done in this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's over at that point. Now you're just mad because it's costing more than you thought it was going to cost.
Yep.
Then design, you got to talk about function. How are you going to use this space? Many people don't understand what space is required for certain use cases.
Yep.
I had this conversation with my in-laws recently. They're like, we want a 10 by 16 deck. I was like, okay, sounds good. Just heads up, that's not very big. If you're planning on putting a table out there, 10 is like too small.
That's
you want to
the
go
minimum.
like minimum 12.
Yeah.
Like 10's tight.
Yep.
Like, no, we don't want people to be sitting out there anyway. We want people to be down at the patio by the lake. Okay, fine. We build it 10 by 12. Already they're talking about now they're going to get a smaller fire table and smaller patio furniture because 10's a little bit too tight.
Mm-hmm.
We could have gone 12. Like they had reasons for not wanting to do a 12 is going to encroach on other things too. But the point is you might think you can get away with a certain size and then it doesn't work for your furniture and your use case. So
Did you feel like just a little bit vindicated when that happened? When the mother-in-law was like, it's a little small.
all the way along.
The whole time, right?
All
You're
of
just
the
like,
changes is like, that's
told you.
what I said. That's
because I'm the goddamn expert.
what I said.
Why do people do that?
Yeah.
Why do they walk in here?
Oh, these
And
boards
there.
have grooves. That's just like I said. Yeah, they do. Yeah, that's why I said I wouldn't do it like that. But anyway,
That's probably one of my bigger pet peeves in the store is when people are like, well, I don't want to do it like that. It's like, then why'd you ask my opinion? Like I could have helped you. I'm trying to help you.
Yeah.
We do this every day. That's all we do. Every day, all day, all the time. Every day.
this might surprise you, but I've
You're not the first person that
been
thought
involved
the
in a
deck.
few decks and put a couple pieces of patio furniture on before. I have a rough idea of what works for.
We actually shouldn't even sell 10-foot lumber. Number 3,
What was that?
material selection. We shouldn't even sell 10-foot lumber. It's like I segued into that. I can see it.
Yeah, this is a big one. There's so many options out there.
Well, you did the presentation to the engineers. Go ahead.
Well, I just did a bunch of signage for our stores that helps people kind of start to digest all the options that are out there because there's options at every stage, material selection. So what kind of piles you're going to put, footings you're going to put in the ground. You're going to do full piles.
Can you hand me
You're
one of
gonna
those?
Are you going to do adjustable footings on top? Like the budget's going to come into play.
We're just going to keep score here. I'm going
On
to
those?
keep it so that it's on my. Oh, you have multiples. I see.
Oh yeah, no, there's like 5 different signs for each stage of a deck.
Okay, here we go. We got footings. We got
Pretty
boards.
fantastic.
I must need framing.
What are we doing? Going through all these?
Oh yeah, and the privacy wall. Yeah, bring that to me.
So you've got that option.
Okay, here we go.
Typically, when you get to your framing, traditionally, there hasn't really been much for options. You just framed it out of pressure treated lumber.
Yeah.
But nowadays, there is options. You could do pressure treated lumber framing. You could do steel framing. In some areas, you can do composite framing. You can do aluminum framing. But most of the time, you're doing wood framing.
12-inch on center, 16-inch on center.
Right. G-tape, no G-tape on the joists. So there's that. But I think when it comes to material selection, what people are really wanting to know is like, am I going to do composite or wood, cedar or treated?
Yeah.
Which composite am I going to do? What's the difference between the composites? Why does this composite cost $2.50 linear foot and this one costs $10 linear foot? They're both composite. How is one 4 times more?
Yeah. And so, like, typically it's a combination of durability, traction, warranty, and color is sort of what drives it. So the better it is, better traction, better coloring, better warranty, it costs more money. That's like kind of the Coles notes.
And some of those things are probably universally true. Like warranty, generally, as you get to higher end boards, usually have higher warranties.
Yep.
Traction, however, maybe not so much.
Not perfect.
Durability, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
Coloring and aesthetic, for sure, gets better when it goes up. Like some of these are for sure, and some of them are like sometimes. But yeah, so the $2 if a composite if you found like a smoking deal, or so you think, on a brand of composite that you've never heard of before, chances are you're about to get burned. Like I get no problem saying that, because there are so many horror stories of people be like, "Oh, I did a composite deck. Oh, where'd you get it? Well, I got it from this like little like strip mall place that supplies like imported vinyl fencing and decking or something."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, where do they get it from? Well, I don't really know.
A boat.
What brand is it? I don't really know. It's just this composite decking. Okay.
It just said composite. It was just composite.
It was just called composite. Okay.
How much? $1.79 a foot. Don't do that.
It's like so much cheaper than Trex. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I just spoke to a lady. Well, we speak to these people all the time. But I just spoke to a lady last night. She's like, I'm looking to replace a deck, and so is I don't know if it's neighbor or sister, somebody she knows in her circle of people. She's like, I'm looking to redo my deck because I did a cheap composite a year ago, and it's already starting to fall apart. And she's like, I need to replace it. And my neighbor or sister, whoever it was, did wood 5 years ago, and they're regretting doing wood. And so they also want a composite because we have a sale on composite right now.
Right.
So she's like, I'm checking for both of us. Like, we're both looking to redo decks and different reasons.
Can you give me a deal? Because I'm going to buy lots of it.
Yeah, no, she didn't even go there. It was just like, it was just conversational. But the thing was like, she got burned by a too good to be true deal. I don't know what composite decking she has on there, but I guarantee you it's not a good quality brand. And I guess you know where it was manufactured for sure.
Yeah.
And so that stuff's out there. It's absolute crap. If you don't recognize it, like, just do some research. If you can't find anything about it online, if it's not a top brand, avoid it. Why would you risk something that's so expensive?
Yeah.
You're not going to go buy a car.
It wasn't that expensive. You know, like
It is to replace it.
By the time you do it a second time in 2 years,
The most expensive thing is cheap enough.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, there's nothing more expensive than cheap enough.
Right. But I'm like, you would not be like, oh, it's time for a new pickup truck. Better go buy a new pickup truck. Okay, well, I've got this Ford here, it's 70. I got this GMC, it's 74. I got this Chevy over here, it's 68. Oh, what's this one? Tankard? Never heard of Tankard before. What's 40? That's a great deal for a truck.
I'm going to buy it.
I'm going to buy it. I've never heard of this before. Nobody I know drives one. I've never even seen it at a store. That's the same thing. Why would you take that chance?
You could get 2 of them, though.
You can get 2 of them. They both last 2 years.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's the equivalent. There's absolute garbage out there in the market. You're going to find it at little tiny hole-in-the-wall stores, and they're importing it from China. That's what's happening. You're going to find it sometimes at box stores.
Yeah.
Box stores will also sometimes carry a good brand too.
Yes, they do.
They'll carry a good brand and then a cheap brand.
Yep.
Go ahead and buy your Trex from Home Depot if you really want to. Like, there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't, but it's the same product though.
That's true.
So that's fine. But don't buy the stuff that's $1 cheaper because it's 10 times worse.
Yeah. It's really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so But if you stick with Trex, TimberTech, Fiberon, Decorators, Wolf, Moisture Shield, like these are all good brands out there that are U.S. or Canadian made. They're
You know what? I think you could probably blanket statement that and just be like, if it's Canadian or U.S. made, it's probably okay.
For the most part, it's pretty. You're for sure down a good path.
Like, yeah, I think that's a really good starting
starter
point. Like, we don't carry everything that's manufactured in North America, but I don't know that I don't have too many that I dislike.
Yeah.
You know? But we just don't stock them all. We can't. It's not possible to stock 78 colors.
And the things you might not like about it could be like, what am I trying to say? Like opinion based. What am I trying to say?
Aesthetics.
Yeah, or that or something, right? It's not that it's a bad quality. It's just like, I don't really like the aesthetic of it, or maybe it's just like it doesn't perform well in certain whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not garbage. Some of the stuff out there is garbage.
Pure garbage.
Will disintegrate literally
there was
on your deck.
A customer that I was talking to, and I was honestly, they were trying to buy composite. They brought this piece in and they showed it to me and they're like, we're thinking we're going to do this. Do you have it? And I was like, for the love of God, please just do treated lumber and come back.
100%.
And I was like, and then come back in 5 years. And they're like, we're going to do this. And I was like, I don't sell that. And I'm not here trying to sell you composite. I'm not saying like take $1.79 board and then just magically find an extra $2,000 and buy the stuff from me. Just buy the boards that I'm selling for 99 cents a foot, put it on, leave it for 5 years, and then redo your deck. Don't put that shit on your deck.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, you're just a swindly sales guy. And I was like, have a life. And out he went. He like took off. He was like, didn't buy anything from us. Yeah. He thought I was trying to screw him over. I was like, I'm really not. I really, really, really am not. I just don't want you to do that product.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you lose that customer forever because they won't come back, right?
Yeah.
Like they won't come back and be like,
pretty hard to tuck your tail and walk back in. Yeah.
So anyways.
Yep. Is what it is.
Number 4.
Foundations and structural support. So we talked a little bit about this already.
Touched on it briefly.
But we won't go into all the details on all the options out there. There's lots of options. But essentially your 2 primary categories of options is, are you going to do like actual footings in the ground, or are you going to do like a floating foundation essentially?
Some areas you're not allowed to do floating.
Right.
Some places you actually have to be connected to the ground.
Yeah.
Here, we're in the wild, wild west. You're allowed to just do whatever you'd like out here. Right? Yeah. And so you just set it on the ground here.
But it's even different.
Tie it to your house.
Regina to Moose Jaw down the street, 40 minutes down the road. Moose Jaw, anything over 2 feet needs piles in the ground. Regina, anything over 6 feet. So even between those 2 cities that are right side by side, the rules change quite a bit. Yep. But in Regina, as soon as you put a roof structure or anything that's going to carry a snow load or have wind uplift, then you have to put a pile on the ground regardless. Yep. A lot of people refer to these things as cottage blocks. Down in the States, a lot of places you're allowed to use them as long as you're not attaching to the house.
Yep.
So if you float your deck, you can use a floating footing. But if you're going to attach to a structure that's not floating, then you have to use also an equivalent foundation for it too, which makes sense.
Yep.
So there's options out there, different types of floating foundations, and then there's, of course, different types of in-ground footings between helicals and concrete and ground screws and everything else.
Yeah.
So
it's
the only reason to go with the floating ones is budget. Let's just get that out of the way. There's nothing that they do better than putting a proper pile on the ground. Proper piles on the ground are costly, though. And so the only reason you do a floating footing would be to save money. Yeah. But it comes with maintenance.
Yep. Yeah, because you have to adjust it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a trade-off that you're willing to make, as is life, right?
Sure. And a floating footing, when I say it, it's because it's sitting on top of the ground. So if you're in an area that has like soil shifting or frost, like winter, frost shifting, whatever, then your whole deck is going to do what the ground's doing. So it may settle unevenly. It will settle unevenly.
Yeah, and some people are really, really nervous about that. They get worked up and they're like, well, I don't want my deck to move. And so I talk about this quite a bit with customers as well. We get that idea because we don't want our house to move. Because if your house moves, then your doors don't open.
Yeah.
Because you have 1/8 of an inch of variance. That's all you're allowed, right? But on the deck outside, it's like, well, if your deck drops 1/2 inch, it's still a deck. Yeah. Like the stairs are still there. They're maybe slightly less level than they were, but like your furniture didn't fall off. Your dog doesn't now.
A lot easier to re-level the deck than your house too.
Sure. Yeah. So anyways, it's not all bad. So
number 5.
Ooh.
DIY versus professional. So hiring a contractor to do it or doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Depends on the project and your abilities.
Your abilities will dictate this.
First and foremost, yeah.
It's really funny. So sometimes I have the ability to change the oil in my truck. I absolutely know how to do that. I can take the filter off and drain the oil and then put the plug back in and go to it. I do think that there is really something to like keeping the economy going. And it's like, let the oil change people change oil. Let the deck builders build decks. And if you're a banker, like just go count your money. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there is something to be said for like doing what you do. If you think about how much time it will take you to build a deck and you think about what you get paid to do your job, then think about like what that costs. Because your time has value. Well, it's on the weekend and I wasn't going to be working anyways. And it's a way to save some money. It's like, you could take your kids to the beach, man. Like, or,
yeah,
right? Spend some time with your family. And the deck builder is going to put this thing up in
10 times
a
faster.
third of the time that you can. So,
yeah. Like I said, the scale of the project is going to dictate it a bit.
Yeah.
Along with your ability. So if you have the ability, you've done all the power tools, maybe you built a few decks before, and it's a manageable project, and you're not relying on a bunch of buddies to come help you, and it's just like, it's an 8x10 deck, and you can crack it off in a weekend or a couple weekends or 3 weekends, whatever. Then have at her.
Yeah.
But if you're not familiar with it and you're not sure how to do things properly, then maybe don't. But also, if the scale of the project is one that is like gigantic, like if we're talking, it's like, doesn't even have to be gigantic. If it's 400 or 500 square feet,
400 square feet, and you're trying to do that by yourself,
a lot for you to carve
whole
off
summer
part-time by yourself. It may seem like a great idea, and you're going to hate it halfway through and be like, good Lord, this thing will never end. I don't have time or patience for this anymore. It's no longer fun.
Yeah.
So if you have the money, like hire the contractor, no question. The only reason to do it yourself is either pride of work or save some money. So if you could think you can do that and you have the ability and the scale of it is manageable, then fine, do it yourself.
The one service that we offer, not like to plug our store, but that assisted DIY is such a awesome,
great balance.
Like it's such a great thing, right? We're geniuses the way we came up with that idea.
Yeah, if we'd only promote it more.
Basically, you have the option to have a contractor frame your deck.
Yep.
And then you can put the deck boards on and you can put the railing on. So you're able to cut some costs. You're able to put some equity into your deck. And you know that the deck is built strong and proper. And it's like, and it gets framed up so fast. And you don't have the proper tools for that.
But for a homeowner, that's probably the slowest part. Because that's the part where all the figuring out happens. All the figuring out and all the like questions are about how it's supposed to be done and whether you connect it this way or that way.
Where do I put my posts?
How do I, all that is like for somebody who's not super experienced with it, that takes all the time.
How do I connect the ledger to my house properly? How do I know when I've hit something? It's like, well, a contractor just does that. They just know that.
Yeah, and for the contractor, that's one of the quicker steps because they're not wondering anything. They know how to do it all. So they can blast that up for you, have that ready to go, and you step in when it's like, oh, I just have to lay the deck boards in a straight line and put the fasteners in. I can do that.
They're like, we have this one crew, almost for sure they could frame 500 square feet of deck a day. Yeah. Just frame. And like, it's unreal to watch them. Like there's 4 of them. They don't even talk. They just like, they do 200 square feet decks in like a couple hours. It's framed up, blocked, ready to go. And they're like, okay, are the deck boards coming? I was like, no deck boards on this one. This is just an assisted DIY.
Yeah.
Do you have another one for us? It's like, yep. And off they go. They do 2 a day.
Yeah.
So,
anyways, pretty good option.
They
Number
love it.
6. Maintenance needs. I need to remember to lift my headphone up. Maintenance needs. So, really, the maintenance when it comes to a lot of decks nowadays is next to zero.
Pressure
wash
wash
it off here and there. If you're doing like composite deck with aluminum rail.
Yeah.
The only time maintenance comes into play is, well, I guess if your foundation is the floating one, you may have some maintenance there.
Yeah, leveling it, and that's fine.
Yeah. And then if you choose wood for your deck, which is just fine, but you're going to have a maintenance.
As long as you take care of it, it'll last. It will be a fine option.
Yeah. So make sure you're okay with that. Make sure you look forward to maintaining your deck. Because if you are anything other than someone who looks forward to doing it, you're going to eventually hate it.
Yeah. And you know what? There's like a spot where I would even say that you should probably draw a line, even if you like doing it. I just don't think that people should do wood railing.
That's the worst part.
I
for sure.
think that you should bite the bullet and do aluminum railing.
Yeah.
Because staining the deck is not that bad.
Do wood with cable or something. Get rid of the infill. It makes it a little bit better. Posts and top rails not too bad. But.
Yeah.
But anyways, the maintenance sucks. Like, let's be
It's the
honest.
worst.
Like, even if you like, if you're a tinker and you're always looking for projects to do around the house and you like going out there and doing that, then fine. But that's not 98% of people.
Not really, no.
For most people, it's a chore that's going to need to be done probably almost every year, every couple years. You're likely going to go use a shitty product for it, because that's what 90% of people do too, which then just creates a bigger headache.
Yep.
Like, if you're going to do it yourself, make sure you get yourself a good, like, penetrating oil that is well revered. Don't use any crap off the box or shelf.
Yeah, just read the reviews, Google it, read a review.
Make the job 10 times worse than it needs to be. And you already didn't like doing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and literally with the bad product, you can wreck your deck. You're flat out wrecking your whole thing. And then you're going to hate it.
Yep.
So anyway, maintenance sucks. It costs money to maintain a deck. It costs time to maintain a deck.
Do you think that the break-even point is still kind of around that 9 years? It's probably changed now, hey? So back in like when we first started the store, there was like some study in the U.S. that said the break-even point between pressure-treated lumber and composite was about 9 years by the time you've stained it and maintained it and replaced the odd board and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, if you're paying somebody to do it, probably for sure still. If you're oiling it yourself, whatever, it might cost you a couple $100 in oil every other year. So it probably takes longer if you're doing it yourself, unless you value your time, whatever. But if you're paying a company to come out and like potentially sand and oil your deck, like, you're probably dropping $1,000 a year just getting it maintained.
Yep.
Again, depends on the size of the deck.
Blah, blah, blah. Yep.
But if it's $1,000 a year to whatever, like, that doesn't take very long to catch up.
That takes 2 years.
Yeah, to catch what comps it would have been.
Yeah, that's right.
So number 7. Resale value and regulated inspections. How is that one thing? Let's just skip the inspection. I feel like inspections is part of the permit process.
Would be.
Resale value, though.
Yeah, unless an inspection was like you had somebody come out just to make sure that the deck was actually still safe and able to sell.
Okay, sure.
So you could do that.
Yeah, resale value, it's so hard. There's a lot of studies out there, and different numbers get thrown around. Stats can tell you whatever you want. But generally what I've heard is that composite decks generally maintain 80 to 100% of their value. So if that deck cost you $10,000, like over its life, a deck costs you $10,000 to do, and you go sell your house in 6 years from now, it probably added around $8,000 to $10,000 of value to your home. So you're going to get some of that back. Wood decks, on the other hand, almost add nothing because they're projects, they're jobs.
They require work.
Yeah.
And when
people buy a house that's got a wood deck, it's like, ugh, I got to take care of this thing. Like, anybody buying a house would have preferred to have had composite.
Correct.
Therefore, they're not willing to pay more because there's a wood deck. It's like, I would rather it not even be there. I'd rather just put a new deck on it.
Yeah.
So the wood decks hardly help your resale value at all.
Yeah.
And certainly beyond 5 years, it's at zero.
And I think that, like, if it's well maintained, somebody can walk into your house, look at it, look outside, see this like really like well laid out, well maintained deck, and they can see value in it.
And they don't mind doing the maintenance themselves.
But they for sure are not going to pay more because it's there.
Yeah.
They might be like, it might not be a negative, but I think that's the best you're going to get out of wood.
Yeah.
It might not be a negative.
Right.
So.
Yep. Number 8. Environmental impact. Okay, so this is a concern for some people. I guess both the construction,
like,
of the
not
deck
us.
and
We're
the materials.
old, right? And so we're not going to be around long anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So
your materials you're using, though, like what you're doing in the ground, I don't know. If maybe you're somewhere that the actual construction of your deck may have environmental impact. If you're like lakeshore or oceanside, there's going to be certain rules you got to follow there.
Yeah.
If you're in certain, what am I trying to say? Protected,
like environmental
like
zones,
grass
or lands,
restrictions as to what you can use, different fire ratings that you're required to use, etc.
Yeah, like parks and stuff, right? Provincial parks or federal parks
may dictate some of what you're allowed to do.
Yeah.
But then there's also the environmentally friendliness of the products you're using specifically. So some people want lumber because they don't want to use plastics because plastics are bad. And some people are like, give me the plastic because I don't want to cut down trees.
And
So it's like
so the plastic is recycled. Almost all of the stuff is recycled. Steel framing is all recycled steel.
and infinitely, right?
And
steel can always be recycled.
Yeah.
Whereas some things have a shelf life, but
yeah. And so, you can make a case for either.
Yeah.
Obviously the carbon footprint of a composite deck board is quite a bit more than a wood one, right?
Yeah.
But
on the other hand, a composite deck, you are taking, like, I don't know how many goes into one board, but like that board is made up of the waste byproduct from a wood mill anyway. So the fibers that are getting essentially thrown into the garbage anyway.
Yeah.
And all your laundry detergent bottles and your recycled stuff that comes out of your household gets
Plastic
melted down
bags.
and used in there. So it stays out of the landfill. So there's clearly a very good environmental reason for that too.
Yeah.
What happens when it's done? Well, it goes to the landfill. So like,
it doesn't have to. Some of it can get reground, and
some of it can. But if it's going to make its way back to the guys who are doing the regrinding, we're probably not.
It's not though. Yeah.
So depends on which angle you want to take as to which one's the most environmental.
It's funny how that works, right? It's like statistics. You can just kind of bend that however you'd like that to report.
It's like electric vehicles. Like, well, they're better because they don't give out emissions. Like, when you drive them, they don't.
Right, but they
get
way
made. There's a pretty heavy impact.
Well,
so it depends on which angle you want to present.
Right, and to charge them, they charge on electricity, and I know that what people want to think is that it's solar and wind. That's not what's actually charging them. What most electric grids run on is coal.
Yeah.
And so like you've gone from fossil fuels being like burning fossil fuels out of the car to burning ore in huge plants, big stacks.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. And you also have to mine lithium out of the ground. I would argue that's actually worse.
Yeah. But I've seen some like some stats or graphs that show like over the lifespan of a car which one actually is better for the environment, and it's like it's not the electric one.
It's not the electric one.
But anyway, number 9. That's all?
It's 5 o'clock right now.
I thought we had 15. Oh, okay. 9? Can you make one up for us? I can't end on like being surprised that the list is over. Give us one more. What's something you've wondered, Warfa? What didn't we answer for you? Just totally on the spot.
How what? Oh yeah. The verbiage of a floating deck has them confused. Which
okay.
is
Well, we can expand on that a little bit if
sure
you want to, and then we will bounce out of here. So a floating deck is simply, boy, there's 2 ways that word could be used, and I use it in the less common way. A floating deck is generally referred to a deck that's not attached to another structure. It's not attached to a house. It's floating independently by itself. I was using the words that's floating on
it.
Yeah. I was using it in the way that I was saying that the deck is floating on the ground and it's not attached in the ground. So I was kind of using it maybe a less common way.
Yeah, I think what Shane was referring to is that half of your deck is fastened to the house, and then out here on this far end, it's just sitting on the ground. And so it can rise and fall as the ground. So
like if you're floating on the water, right?
And the
waves are coming, you do what the waves do. You do what the water does. You float on top. And that's what when I was saying floating deck, I was referring to it's sitting on top of the ground. And so if the ground heaves 2 inches because of frost heave, the deck is going to float with it and go with it. And if the ground, in our environment, at least in the Regina area, super clay soils, which are very expansive when they get wet.
Mm-hmm.
So even like there's frost we got to deal with, and then there's also expansive clay soils. So really wet spring, the ground can expand. It can heave 2 inches just from moisture. It rains too much this year. Then in June the rain stops and it gets really dry, and the ground all shrinks back down. And the deck's just doing that up and down, up and down, up and down, which if it's floating in the other way, not attached to the house, and it's all just going up and down at the same time, who cares? It's
you wouldn't even notice it probably.
Doing just fine.
Yeah.
If it's attached to the house, then you've how if you ever try to snap something off of something, it's like you bend it back and forth a bunch of times and then it gets weak and then you snap it off. Well, that's the problem with attaching to a permanent structure like a house and then having it float, is that you're stressing those hanger nails and those fasteners because the deck is just constantly being hinged and moved back and forth 1,000 times a year. Because people often say like, well, how many freeze thaw cycles do you have in a year? It's like, 2. when it freezes in the winter and then when it thaws in the spring. No,
That's not true.
no, you have like 600 because for many days a year, it's +6 during the day and it's -14 at night. It freezes and thaws every day twice for like 100, like whatever it is. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of movement that can happen.
Like there is certainly a month on both sides of that.
Yeah.
There's 30 days on both sides.
Where it's like daily goes through that cycle.
Right. So it's 60 times in the spring, 60 times in the fall.
Yeah.
Right.
So that can just stress things. I'm not saying the ground is moving daily. It's doing that because it's like it eventually the freeze sets into it and it stays. But certainly expansion and contraction on the boards, that's happening daily.
Yep.
The boards grow in the middle of the day and then they shrink at night and they grow and then they shrink and then they grow and they shrink. And the fasteners holding them need to be able to withstand that.
Yep.
So anyways, floating, does that kind of answer it? Kind of, sort of, a little bit? All right. Well, we managed to do 15 topics in only 9 topics.
He's ready to
8.
build a deck.
Ready to build a deck. Sweet.
Okay, buddy.
Okay, well, that was a great list, so I'm glad we discussed that. But Wade and Shane, peace out for today.
tomorrow.
Ultimate Deck Podcast. Need a show
This is not
about
the one.
outdoor living?
Wade,
This
this
is
isn't the
where
first
it's
time
at.
we've done
With your
this.
host, Shane Chapman, and
You're supposed to correct me on this. Let's do the right one.
Now let this
With the outro now? That was what our intro sounds like, and we're going to change that.
How can you tell that it's been too long since we've done this podcast? All the buttons are messed up. At least you know how to build decks.
Hey,
Peace
thank
out.
you for listening to the Ultimate Deck Podcast. Now you know what we're about. Check the site, come and shop. UltimateDeckShop.com. Hit us right away for sponsorships or tell us if you want to collaborate. Let's go. Check us out on any social networks. Thank you for listening.